Part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Look up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane,
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action. This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Birthright. You're listening to the Krypton Report.
Happy New Year. This is Tyler from Krypton Report, and I want to take a moment to just talk about something kind of serious. Mental health. I want to say to everyone out there that January sometimes a really difficult month for everyone, and as we go into it, I'm reminded that people don't always take care of themselves, that mental health can be a problem, and I just want to encourage every listener and fan out there to reach out to friends, to family, talk to people, stay connected, do things that make you happy. Life can be stressful. I work a high emotional, stressful job, and I got to make sure that I'm checking in on myself with my friends and my family, and podcasting is a way that I do that with my friends. And I've struggled the past few months since getting the job actually wanting to podcast because I've been so emotionally exhausted, but I've pushed myself through things. So I want to encourage everyone to find a friend, make sure that they're doing okay. If you want to reach out to us and chat, we're always happy to talk comics or anything, honestly. You know our socials or my personal socials at JTYPatrick on X, Twitter, Krypton Report on everything that there is. Reach out and enjoy the new year. Okay? Take care.
Welcome to the Krypton Report podcast. I'm your host, Tyler, the Superman of Blue, the only DC podcast you ever need. And with me is James, the man. That's right. The one who wears the red. The one who can dribble a bowling ball. The one that we all wish we were. Mr. Cole. What's up, buddy?
Hey, how's it going? I don't know if you want to be me lately, but yeah. How's it going?
The first Krypton Report of the new year.
Yeah, it should have been last year's. Like one of the end ones. Yeah,
it should have been. This is 504, which this should have been 502. We're finally going to talk Aquaman 2.
Woo woo. So, yeah, Aquaman 2 today. just got out of seeing it a couple hours ago.
Good. So my memory's going to be a little bit more rusty than James.
Oh, you didn't get to go see it again?
No.
I know you said you were thinking about it.
Yeah, we were going to, but I didn't feel the best yesterday, and I ended up in urgent care today because I just was coughing a lot, and it's just a cough, but I just wanted to make sure it wasn't anything major. So yeah. I was like, okay, gonna go check to have a big work week. So I was like, I can't afford to be sick.
No, sir.
So
get stuck out of work for a week with COVID or something.
I mean, I could work from home. It's just I can do some, but I have a lot of stuff I have to do on site. So
yeah,
I'm like, yeah, I gotta be there. So yeah, that's where I was. But anyways, enough about that. Let's talk some cool stuff. Ready? Let's talk some cool stuff. First thing that's really cool. So if anyone's interested, James Gunn is really, really active on Threads. So he is active on Threads more than on Twitter. And the other night, there was a comment. Someone was asking about Superman Legacy, and I just chimed in and threw up a picture, talked about the Legacy box that the kids made, and James Gunn liked it and rethreaded it or whatever. And
now Tyler's famous.
And my phone has not stopped buzzing. That's like the most famous social media post I have ever made in my entire life. So thank you.
Hey,
James
it's
Gunn.
Awesome that it's a Superman post.
Yes, I will take a job now doing whatever on the set.
Absolutely.
Give me a call.
You need coffee? I got you.
Yeah, you need anything. I got you. So yeah, that was cool. I do want to tell everyone that Aquaman is on Netflix. It came up recently, so that's pretty much. I think that's almost all the DC movies are on the DCEU movies are on Netflix now, which is weird because I feel like that would have been a really good push for Aquaman 2 would be to like had, the first one drop on Netflix. I think the only thing that's not is Zack Snyder's Justice League and I think Blue Beetle.
Yeah, well, Blue Beetle's that new, and Zack Snyder's Justice League is exclusive. So, I mean, it's like a Netflix original. You're not going to see it anywhere else. Then, what was it? Aquaman. I mean, do they want to push? Yeah, go watch our movie on Netflix. Push Netflix to sell their other movie. I mean, it probably would be beneficial, but them business people, them bean counters, are like, you can't promote somebody else for our stuff.
That's why it's all on Netflix, is because they sold the streaming rights to other streamers. That's why all of a sudden you're seeing all this. Remember when all this stuff was being pulled, like it's going to be on Max. Max is the hub for everything DC, and now it's there, but they're also streaming and, lending it out to Netflix. Like there's a whole bunch of animated stuff.
Well, when you mismanage the property consistently for 20 plus years, I mean, what do you expect?
DC's just the easiest stuff to recognize, but like Scooby-Doo's doing the same thing, because Sailor watches a lot of Scooby-Doo. So yeah,
Warner Brothers is doing that with everything right now because
that's what I'm saying.
They were just a freaking a well of draining money. You know what I mean? That's not the right way to phrase that, but they were just just dumping money and not making any in return because they mishandled every IP they have.
That's what I'm saying. Like Warner Brothers, is just selling all their properties to make money. So they're, selling them out to other streamers. And DC was just the biggest one to notice because they had made it such a big deal that DC was only on Max. And now everything is there. But anyways, we digress. We are still doing our Extreme movie giveaway. We are building up a backlog of DC Films digital copies that we're giving away. It's going to consist of about 4 or 5 movies. Yeah, when we're all done, all said and done. So yeah, all you have to do is subscribe, like us on, share the podcast, and then just let us know, and we will put you in a drawing. We were going to do it for Christmas, but because of our schedules, and I wanted to build up some more movies to throw in there. So check that out. And then last but not least, as we review Aquaman, we have a special crossover event coming where we will be doing it'll be a 4-part event looking back at all the DCU. Looking at the movies, not just the history of the DCU in general, because some of that will be brought up when James and I do our upcoming episode where we look at all the things that DC ever has since I think I started it. Since it starts, I think, shortly after Batman Returns. It's just stuff I've put together of projects that they have announced that never came to fruition. So we'll have some history of the DCEU in there as well. But so for tonight's discussion, we will be discussing Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, starring James Cole as a fish, Tyler Patrick as a fish.
Yeah, you should have seen me on set going like being Topo.
James was actually just Mira's hair.
It's just Mira's hair.
But no, we're here with the second Aquaman film, and I'm excited to chat with James, and
Allura,
we're going to do some spoiler free, and here we go. I saw this movie on opening day at 4 p.m. I got off work at 3, met the family at the theater at 3:30, and we went straight to the theater. It was cool because there's only 2 other people in there, And where do they sit? Right behind us. I'm like, the theater is completely empty. How are you going to sit right by us? And I was like, don't you dare say jack crap about my kids talking or getting exciting and move it around. You're right next to me, like in an empty theater. like, so, we had a good time and enjoyed it. I do want to say, as of today, I was reading that it has crossed 300 million globally.
Excellent. So it's made more money than The Flash.
Yeah. So.
Yep, made more money than The Flash, that's for sure.
But it was fun. Like, we went to our local theater, which is an indie theater. So we didn't get any kind of cool, like souvenir cups or anything like that. It sucked. But.
Well, not that I usually buy too much of the extra stuff like that, like the souvenir cups and whatnot. But all I saw was Taylor Swift crap. Buckets for her
I saw those
tour stuff.
So domestically, Aquaman looks like it's made 100 million so far domestically. That's 17 days in theaters. It's the number 2 movie right now, behind Wonka, which was an awesome movie, but
Was it?
So,
well, Timothée Chalamet's got a lot of I think that's his name, right? He's got a lot of cred right now. All the girls swoon over him these days.
So let's see here. Yeah, so I mean, Aquaman, it's not doing horribly. It's just not doing what they wanted after the first one. But I mean, this is also the film that felt like they just dumped it. Like, in a lot of ways, it really feels like they just dumped this movie. Because there really wasn't any.
Let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
So they announced that DCEU was ending. That James Gunn DCU was coming out. They announced that this year before any move last year, almost a year ago now.
James Gunn's announcement was on January 31st.
Exactly. So they announced that it was all ending before 4 freaking movies came out. Only to say that they're not going to see anything from the future until at least middle 2025.
James sounds pissed, everyone.
So my question to you is, how goddamn stupid are you?
Explicit label.
Sorry. To tell everybody that these movies that cost you hundreds of millions of dollars to make, hundreds of millions of dollars, that these movies don't mean jack.
Well, the sad part is, we no longer watch films as individual movies. We now have to watch films for what they represent other movies. Like, you can go into these movies and be like, oh, that was a great movie. That was a great sequel. That was a great film. But it doesn't matter because it's not in this universe anymore. And that's a sad, sad statement, that you can't take a film for a movie for what it is. But at the same time, with what you just said, I can't disagree with it. I think, I really believe he should have kept Superman Legacy really under wraps. It would have been hard to do, and waited probably till, I don't know, June or something to announce Superman Legacy. I mean, I would have, if he wanted to do his announcement like he did, I would have focused on Waller, Peacemaker, Creature Commandos, and just kind of been talked about Swamp Thing all the properties that weren't really exactly reboots.
Yeah, instead of saying, hey, like all these movies that have yet to come out aren't going to matter in a year, instead of like, I'm looking forward to this. These are the projects we have that are coming, blah, 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 blah. I'm looking at
I'm helping shepherd
this,
them.
and this. I'm helping to shepherd forward these things, not to say like, hey, this crap doesn't matter. You should focus on this stuff. So while these movies lose hundreds of millions of dollars, you can rest assured that you can go see another one in 2.5 years.
I mean, you're not wrong, because when we talk about this in part 4, when we get to this part of the DCEU, the thing is, when you read about, and we'll talk a little bit about this, the reshoots, the screenings of Aquaman, the 3 different endings of The Flash, the fact that these 4 films, there was at times 3 different heads of DC, going into them. So they were being shepherded by leadership changes. And I think it shows that, the most care wasn't given to completing these films as they should have been.
Yeah, like,
so it is really.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I'm just saying, like, so it's really upsetting as we close out this chapter where this was the biggest year as far as, oh my God, there will be 4 DC films in theaters.
Yeah.
Let's see. Just for a think back, 2016, BVS and Suicide Squad. 17 was Wonder Woman and Justice League. And then it was one a year, right? 1 in 2019, 2 in 2020, which was Birds of Prey.
It was 2 in 2016.
December was
2017.
WWE,
1 in 2018.
1 in 2019. 2 in 2020.
Right.
1 in 2021. 1 in 2022. And then here we are with 4 in 2023. And then technically you could say 2 in 2021 if you want to throw Zack Snyder's Justice League in there.
Should have been like the most exciting part, the most exciting time for DC, really building up that freaking universe and that release schedule. You know what I mean? But anyways, before we go into like our spoilers, because we kind of got off on a tangent there about the DCEU, like that just goes hand in hand of so many things that we've been saying, because spoiler free, like I actually really, really liked the movie for the most part, but that just that announcement and these movies and everything and the way that they were handled is just another bit of evidence on how mismanaged and mishandled this IP has been. Like that you're not even promoting the stuff you have coming out, that you're only concerned with this far off future of expecting, the $1 billion marker like they were. Like, you know what I mean? It's just so badly mismanaged. Like that they tanked this last year of movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like they did it. It had nothing. This is brand damage. Do you expect people to really start coming to DC movies come 2025 and beyond after year after year after year after year of damaging the DC brand?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
This is why we need, James's fire when we do our you'll hear it on our 4-parter as we go film by film. But no, you're not wrong, because you look at the opening scenes of what, I don't want to talk too much DCEU in general, just because that's what the other podcast is for. But, the films that came out this year were so retooled and restructured, and there's a through line for that. I mean, think about how they were pushed back. Like Aquaman was pushed back in a year. A year. It was supposed to be out last year.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
So
an entire year, and we had the few bits of CGI. I think we'll point out when we get there.
So okay. So we're going in right here. Thoughts, spoiler free, since we kind of got on our tangent of just frustration. I'll go first because James will probably preach for an hour.
Go ahead.
I enjoyed the movie. It works as an Aquaman sequel. You don't have to see any other movie other than Aquaman. Even then, they kind of make it that Aquaman itself, like, it helps you fill in the gaps. I enjoyed it. It was fun. I kind of give it I'd like to see it again. You know, if the first Aquaman's an A, this is a B. And I'll break that down later. And I mean, I didn't leave disappointed. You know what I'm saying? I left smiling and having a good time. There's some things I wish had been done differently, and we'll get into that, but It's not garbage. It's not trash. Like, yes, I'm always DC biased, as people will say, because I enjoy them a lot. But I mean, I enjoy Marvel too. And, you know, me and the kids went and saw The Marvels. And you know how when you're watching a film and you know, there's that moment in the movie, the way it's structured, that feels like, oh, the movie just started. You know, like maybe it's a scene or just the way it opens up. Like, oh, the movie started. The Marvels never felt like it started, if that makes sense. Like, I'm watching it and I'm like, it's always that feeling of like the film. It just kind of, it felt like you came in a beat late. I don't know. It's weird.
Like they just dropped you in.
Kind of. Yeah. Like, and I think that's part of the storytelling structure that they're in right now, where this is just the next episode of the next chapter compared to looking at it as a film. And I say that because that was the last Marvel film. And since we're always comparing Marvel and DC, but I didn't feel that with Aquaman. It felt like a completed film. I love James Wan as a filmmaker. And yeah, we'll kind of go from there. And I'll let you kind of do what you just overall thoughts.
Okay. Well, I mean, I mirror quite a bit about what you said about this movie in particular. You know, I enjoyed it. There was far more that I liked about the movie than I didn't. It was really fun. It worked as a great sequel to Aquaman. It stood alone as a film. It stood alone as a sequel. You know, we left and we were talking about it. We really enjoyed it. But then also there were things like, and you said and I say we left talking about it because we enjoyed it, because we really did, but we left like, really? That's what they did to end it, to walk out, was that reshoot scene? Anyways, we'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, that's just one of them. But otherwise, overall, yeah. I mean, slightly less, slightly less good, I say, if that's the right word, than the first one. I mean, you kind of nailed it there a little bit. Allura, baby. Oh yeah, you didn't see the movie, honey.
Damn, she told you.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to getting into spoilers here and talking about it.
All right, so I think the majority of our conversation is going to be over the spoiler wall here, so we're going to get into it. I recommend just see the movie. Like, it's fun.
Oh yeah, definitely. If you like the first one, go see this one. I mean, Jason Momoa, Patrick Wilson, James Wan, freaking John Rhys Davies, Dolph Lundgren. I mean, the whole Amber Heard, you know, the whole freaking crew that showed up for the first one, showed up for the second one. and I think they delivered, and I think some of the issues we're going to talk
You totally
about when
mentioned
you
Amber Heard.
look at them, you'll see when you look at them, you can, I think, almost tell the difference like you can in so many of the other DC films where they went back to reshoot this quippy crap
So here we go.
with the
In
unfinished special effects.
2, 1. Okay. Since it's been a while since I saw it, my mind's going to be kind of all over the place.
Well, feel free to lead me, and I will say what I have to say, and I'll bring up other things as we go along.
The first thing is the story. I feel like this is kind of almost an example of Superman 4, where the actor wants to do some sort of message that really gets lost in the story. Okay? And doesn't kind of do everything that it should have. Part of the story is basically Black Manta has teamed with Dr. Stephen Shen and is traveling around trying to find Atlantean tech to see what he can do to repair his Manta suit so that he can seek his revenge on Aquaman. And they come across something in the Arctic, and basically it leads them to the Black Trident. And they burn the fuel of orichalcum that causes basically global warming. And basically the Black Trident is connected to King Atlan's brother and
King Carapax. No, not
Carapax.
Not Carapax. Cordax. There we go.
And
my bad. Sorry. Cordax. I was like, wait, no, that came out. I was like, that's wrong.
It basically possesses Manta. Excuse me. And that's pretty much the gist of the story. And I say that because the global warming thing is a neat kind of why the polar is melting, because Cordax is imprisoned with a lost kingdom as Necris, which is kind of like the city of the dead, basically, is what it feels like. And it's in ice, and which is fine. But like I said, like the whole double layers of first we have to melt the ice to get to them, and then we need the royal blood to free Cordax. It really makes me start to think like the global warming didn't really go anywhere. Okay. This is where I feel like the script got reshot and retooled and things got changed, because this is a big plot that doesn't really go anywhere. A certain character gets killed off screen because of supposedly the waters are warming and it's causing, was it an infection or
a plague?
Pollution? A plague. That's never talked about, shown, or dealt with. And then we have the one that we have this whole council that King has to report to that don't play into the whole plot at all. So there's a lot of threads that are getting left on this story when we could have really made this more of a simple story.
Well, so I feel that there are like some of these threads, the council, the houses, I think a couple of those things are put in there because it's similar. It's a similar idea that they had before, that if we're only going to get this chance to do this Aquaman movie, I think they were lucky to get the chance to make a second one. And the idea of putting more things to fill out the Atlantean world in there was probably what they wanted to do.
But it doesn't
explore
go anywhere.
More.
It doesn't do anything for the story. Like if you know,
in all honesty, it does, because there's a few plot points in the movie. Okay, one of them being Arthur never wanted to be king.
That's fine. That's perfectly fine.
The second one being and the global warming thing, the polluting the planet and killing off people. That was in the first one.
That was kind of part of why Orm wanted like the pollution of the oceans to go toward the surface world.
Yeah,
You know,
that was part of part one. So this is just a constant problem that this is actually speaking out about, because Jason Momoa has begun, cleaning the ocean's foundations or whatever.
Right. And I'm like, that's why I say it goes back to like when Christopher Reeves had his agenda against nuclear weapons. But I'm saying, like, pick a story. Don't try to tie the stories together. You want to do about global warming and something where it's threatening Atlantis, and you could say the global warming was releasing things that have been in prison. Fine. You don't have to do the Black Trident. You don't have to over convolute the story. Or if you want to make it about brothers.
I think even if you, I was gonna say, I think even if you melt the ice caps though, without the blood, you still can't.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. You're overcomplicating what could have been a simple story, because now you're adding another layer to that, and it just takes up more time. Like the whole council thing. If they had been a plot where the council wanted to remove Arthur, and were really pushing the agenda of he's not king, it would have been a different plot.
Well, I also think
it's only an hour and 55 minutes.
Right.
Like,
I think
don't
that's
waste
also
my time.
Yeah, I think that's also some of the pushback of Arthur not being the. It's not expressly said on screen, which is, I'm sure, part of what you're talking about. It's not expressly said on screen that, because he wasn't raised in the royal family. He's not part of Atlantis. Could be something with the pushback of him being the king, as well as obviously like they're siding with and looking at things more the way Orm was.
If there had been a part where we had gotten these developments where they had said like King Orm would have never done this, King Orm was right, or if there had been some sort of like maybe Orm was right all along, there had been some sort of a plot point to it, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you only are giving me an hour and 55 minutes. Give me story with my characters that I love.
It also ties into the very end though of them going to the UN and sitting at the table though. But it does tie into the end of the film of Arthur wanting to build bridges. So it is really not entirely pointless, because they were like, if we're going to reveal ourselves, it's going to be to eliminate the surface dwellers. Otherwise, but he makes that decision to do it. You know what I mean?
Based on what Orm says about if you do it, Atlantis will follow. But my thing is, you can still do that and not need the council, because what we lost in this film, okay?
Can you? Because you don't have people. You don't have people saying that he can't do that.
That's because you didn't craft it right. Because who's missing? Vulko. Vulko gets killed off screen and is just kind of thrown away.
But Vulko would have been more on his side to do that, less on the council side to disagree with him.
But the council was never even part of the first film when they were making him Orm Ocean Master. So you forced them into the sequel. When what you could have done is had the Vulko, you could have had as Arthur, you could have had King Dolph Lundgren, the Fisherman King, the Brine King. The different kingdoms have to agree on this, taking it back to the way that Orm was establishing the kingdom in the first film, and just kind of keep it within them about the idea that they're all trying to talk. And you have Dolph Lundgren basically representing the no, I don't want to do this, and he still feels against the surface war. So that continues his character story. You give a little bit more to those characters. Instead of introducing these new characters that just fall flat because they give us a horrible scene of him falling asleep and like the crown kind of floating off his head.
Yeah, that's a horrible scene, and
that's a reshoot.
That's one of my that is a reshoot. You can tell the difference in the trailer shots of this movie, but also if you look at that throne room as it was portrayed in the first movie and as it was portrayed in the trailers, as opposed to as it was actually portrayed in the film, it's unpolished, it's unfinished. It looks flat, it looks glossy. It was very bright and vibrant, and you could see like the smoothness of everything in there, because that throne room was so bright. Like, but it looks so flat and fake.
Yeah.
Like,
And
they
that's
did it
and that's
before, and it was different in the trailers. So just to have him fall asleep, like, that was stupid.
This film reminds me slightly of what they did to Justice League, and like I said, Superman 4.
Well, dude, that ending scene was that ending scene, that
We'll get
last
there.
line was
We'll get
totally
there. We'll get there.
exactly what they did in Justice League.
And that's why I had the conversation with Brian is there's James Wan's Aquaman, which is the first Aquaman film. There's Zack Snyder's Aquaman, which is BVS, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. And then there's Warner Brother Discovery Aquaman, which is Justice League and what they're doing to this movie. Because there are times in this movie where it's like, oh man, this is funny. Let's just keep going. They made Aquaman someone awesome in Justice League and in his own film and everything. And then by this movie, they're starting to bring him back to being a joke.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of it is they let Momoa be Momoa too much. They stopped at times.
I think when they went to the reshoots and stuff, they encouraged him to be more
him,
him,
not be Arthur,
like
not
his
be Arthur,
public persona.
Yeah, not be Arthur, be Jason.
Yeah,
like because there's parts where I'm just like, really, like, you know, even like when he's in regular clothes, like he looks like Jason Momoa does every time you see Jason Momoa. Like they took inspiration from him to build the character, but it's like by this movie they're like, just be you. Now there's times where it feels like Arthur, but then there are times where it's like it's just back to being Jason Momoa playing Aquaman.
Yeah,
and that's the stuff that gets me. It's just how some of the jokes go a little too long, or his attitude's a little too much. It's a little too much, like just things that are like, okay, that wasn't that funny, and you're bringing down the character for what?
Yeah. I mean, I do agree with that, but it is something that we did see in the first one, like by the end of the bar scene, which was a montage, you know, so you got to see it, but you didn't have to live with it as they did in this movie.
And I feel like the bar scene was perfect in that one because it was showing, because if you look at Justice League or either version, Arthur's story is he doesn't feel like he belongs anywhere, especially in Zack Snyder's, and he meets other people like him and he's starting to open himself up. Like Arthur was very brooding and alone in Justice League because he felt isolated. And the whole part is he's starting to open up to people. And I think the bar scene's kind of an example of that because he's kind of like, at first he's like, all right. And then by the end of it, he's like, all right, cool. Like, you know.
Yeah, they're holding him up. He's up. They're holding him up by his arms and his legs. And, you know, he's drinking and smiling and they're having a good old time, you know.
So I just feel like there's parts in this where it just goes too Momoa-y with dialogue and action.
Yeah. But honestly, I think that's what they were selling this movie on. Is because they were like, oh, well, the first movie sold on Jason Momoa because he was the big thing at the time. He had just come off of Game of Thrones and, you know, whatever else at that time. Like, he's just this huge commodity right now. And he drew people in. And the first movie was a really good movie. You know, and I'm sure other things as well. But, you know, I think that's what happened. And they're like, oh, well, we're going to sell this movie on the back of Jason Momoa. And he's just going to be Jason. Like, and people are going to love it.
Yeah. I mean, you think about his tenure on Game of Thrones was in 2011. And
he was in one season.
Started. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The first season, which was 2011.
Yeah.
And then, you know, he shows up. He did some other things here and there, but you know, he
a bunch of supporting roles, but he was growing.
Justice League was his big thing. And then Aquaman, which was, you know, like you said, great. So yeah, they're betting it on their star.
Which I mean, like you have to do. But your star is supposed to help you sell the movie. The movie is supposed to sell itself.
Right. Exactly.
And they don't do that. They're not trying to do that anymore. They're not trying to make a good movie that actually sells the movie and wants you to come back.
Okay, well, so let's go back to the beginning of this movie. The beginning of this movie kind of starts with a montage. In a way, like there's a really cool scene that started that's Arthur telling his son with action figures. I was a little bummed. I was really looking forward to him fighting these pirates. And I
Yeah, I
kind of
bet
wonder
that
if
was a
there's
whole
more to
scene
this.
too that they cut for this new beginning.
I do too, because I'm going to bet you that some of those scenes that make it in the final montage at the end of the movie were at the beginning.
Yeah.
I will bet you because we know things were changed. I truly believe they killed Thomas in this movie. And then because the dialogue about I'm going to have you stay alive to have him watch, it's done with Black Manta through his helmet. The dialogue of he's going to live from the Atlanteans like off screen. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
I really believe that they killed Thomas and then that tested bad and they were like, we can't do this. Or
Right.
like, oh crap, we just did this in Blue Beetle. We can't do this again. So they changed it. And that's why we have the scene at the end where they're all kind of together at the lighthouse and everything.
Yeah, having a good time in the yard and stuff.
And you know, I don't care what anyone says about this supposed to be a bromance type movie between the brothers. There's still a lot of weirdness about where Amber Heard is in this Mira in the story period. Like when Arthur's at the lighthouse with his dad, where is she? Like we don't see her doing anything in Atlantis. Is she supposed to be queen of Atlantis? Like, is she down there doing something? Like they don't really talk about her and her role in anything.
Yeah, so I'm sure that's part of the reduction of her role. But in all honesty, I never had a problem with her as Mira. I actually liked her as Mira.
I'll take
in the first
Mira.
one and in this one, I liked her in this one. I actually, when she showed up and the stuff she did, you know, I honestly think she did a good job. You know, it's just hard. It's hard. You know, we all know it's harder. It's hard enjoying somebody, or you feel a little for enjoying somebody's work, who has been like proven to be a toxic type person. I don't know. I don't want to go. I'm not involved in that whole thing. I don't want to go into the whole thing. You know what I mean? People can be with people who bring out the worst in them. So that doesn't necessarily make you a bad person because two people brought out the worst in each other. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, you got to look for the context clues about other things around, and I totally get it. I mean, we have the whole Smallville conundrum. So,
but
I don't like the editing being kind of montagey because I feel like, you know, I didn't really like the needle drops in this movie. You know, I'm not a huge fan of needle drops in superhero movies, period. But like Born to Be Wild, like we couldn't have got like a cover of Born to Be Wild or something kind of new. I mean, you did a horrible cover of Africa in the last movie. Like, you know, like you couldn't have got like something a little bit heavier than like Born to Be Wild and then later we get Spirit in the Sky. God, I hate that song. I think that song has to be free.
Yeah.
Like it appears in so much crap. It was in Suicide Squad. Like it just has to be free.
Right. You know, I mean, I don't know, like the idea, they didn't go into it like Mira being gone, but I mean, she's got to have work to do, right? She's got to have work to do in Atlantis and or Zebel. Like, you know, go off, do your job, and then come back home. Because she was in that montage in the beginning and in that montage in the end. So she's there.
That's what I'm saying, but like, that's why I'm like, they put her in montages. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I totally thought they were gonna I totally thought that she was gonna be out for like the whole movie after she got blasted by Manta's new helmet.
Yeah, I did too.
The way she went down and everything, I thought she was gonna be like incapacitated due to injury and stuff. But then she came back. for the final fight and everything.
Yeah,
But
I thought she would, and I'm like, was that just they had like they couldn't cut around that? They couldn't do anything. Like, I don't know.
I am glad she is in the movie for at least as much as she is. She is the mother of that child. She is his wife, the Queen of Atlantis. She could have been in there more. If she was in there less, it might have been more weird as to like, where is the freaking mother of this child? I think she was in there enough. She did some things. She helped in Atlantis. She helped in Necros, and she got her child back. And I think it was okay.
I think that, yeah. I mean, it goes back to what I wonder what the original script was.
Yeah.
Because I just got a feeling like there's so much that was changed and altered with the roles of different characters. Because there's some people that were theorizing that later, I can't point them out, but like Topo scenes might have been like Mira scenes, and I was like, what? But whatever. So I mean, it just like we have the funny scenes of like her like curving the pee when Aqua baby pees, and
that was
Aquaman
hilarious.
moves.
I laughed.
I did too, just because like I mean we're both dads and we've probably both been peed on.
Oh, dude, the freaking first poop Jimmy had at home, man. He like was changing him on the couch, the chair, and he was breastfed, and he didn't take well to it, and he I was changing his butt, and he sharted, and it shot, dude, like 16 inches, and it hit me.
Like Solomon was bad. Like when we change his diaper, we have to like lift the diaper up because like as soon as air hit him, he just want to pee. So like we'd pull the diaper up for a second, then push it back down, and he would just start peeing. We'd catch it before we actually started changing him because we got peed on.
I was gonna say, how many times did it take you to learn that every time he got hit with air, he was ready to go?
I don't remember, but
yeah, as a parent, I think we would enjoy the scene there, that the beginning montage with that.
It was weird how some of those scenes were filmed with like Amber Heard and Jason, but they weren't like in the scene together. You know what I'm saying? Like it felt like two scenes that are working, together, but two shots, in a scene, but they're not really like feeling that they're in the same room together.
I mean,
it was some weird stuff,
right? I mean, they felt like they were in the same room, but definitely not in the same shot. It was like shoot over this way to the bed and shoot over that way to the changing table. So there's definitely two shots,
and that's just kind of,
but definitely the same room.
The other thing that got me was, okay, what was part of the story of the first film? Thomas getting his wife back. Why was Nicole Kidman never around with Thomas? Like I expected her to see her at the lighthouse. I expected honestly, I would have had her be the Volko role in this.
Well, you know what?
Like Arthur's advisor.
So some of the things you keep saying is like, we didn't see this person here, we didn't see this person there. Just that's got me thinking like, this has got to be part of editing the movie down to 2 hours.
Exactly.
Like, this feels exactly like the mandate they've been doing forever now, that these movies can't exceed 2 hours.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, not only did they they reshot stuff, they worked around mirror, they cut this movie down. And I tell you that because I can feel it.
Well, that's why it opened with a montage and it ended with a montage. It's because they cut the crap out of it.
Like, Brian asked me a question today. He said, how long do you think Superman Legacy should be? And I said 2:15. He said, oh, okay, why not 2:30? I said, well, 2:30 would be fine, no more. But I think 2:15 would be a good sweet spot. He's like, okay. And this movie, like I said, is like an hour 55. And for it to be a sequel, and for as much as you're trying to do in this, I feel like you lost so much. Now, that's why I'm saying like certain characters, I'm like, because this is a direct sequel to the first Aquaman movie. This isn't one of those where, oh, I need to watch, Justice League in between. Because like the first Aquaman's 2 hours and 23 minutes. Okay. This film, takes place after the first Aquaman movie. So there's nothing you really have to watch in between to tell the story. So it is a direct sequel. So we're going to pick up on threads that we are already weaving, which it does, but some of it feels off. Like I said about Nicole Kidman's Atlanta and Thomas. That's one of my big beefs of just like, what are they up to?
Right.
You only see
Well,
them
I mean, in a
maybe
similar
2 shots.
Right. I mean, in a similar vein, like she has responsibilities to that, but her home maybe being up there with Thomas. So like some of those daytime things, she's busy taking care of some of her responsibilities, and then she comes back. That's headcanon crap. You know what I mean? Because when we watch
Right,
these
but my thing
movies,
is,
I mean,
what
we see stuff on the
responsibilities?
screen, but they're supposed to be living a life. They're supposed to have a life,
But
things you see on screen, things you don't see on screen.
she's technically the queen mother, right? But she's supposedly been dead. She could probably just relinquish and go live with Thomas. I mean, that's what she wanted to do in the first place. And like I said, if you made her the vocal role, where she's now Arthur's advisor, would have given her a more active role in the film and made a little bit more sense of why she's not there with Thomas. But I digress. There's just things like, that's why I say, like, if you're going to edit this thing, we need a more streamlined story. But all right, so let's kind of talk Dr. Stevenson. I liked Randall Park in this. I like Randall Park, period. He has some great scenes. And his pairing with Black Manta was cool. I did think it was funny that like they never called him David Kane once in the first movie, and they throw it around so much in this one.
So much. so much. He was always David.
I totally forgot that was his name for like a split second. And then I was like, what? Oh yeah. But they never said it in the first Aquaman movie. But in this one, it's like David. So that was interesting. Just to hear his name. The Black Man, Yaya is always awesome. And I liked him as Black Manta. He had his crew. And they find, old Atlantean based tech because of Necris. But I feel like okay, let me ask you this. Do you feel we got shortchanged with Manta by basically making him possessed because of the Black Trident?
I do a little bit. In the end, like him being like possessed by him, I think that was a little like it made Kordax the bad guy less than Aquaman. Or Aquaman, Black Manta.
Right.
It made
Okay,
Black Manta this villain to be manipulated into doing what Kordax wants instead of the villain who wants to kill Aquaman.
It felt a little weak.
Especially come the end, the fight scene after Kordax takes Orm instead and leaves Black Manta. Black Manta goes to punch him, Aquaman, and he just freaking grabs his hand, freaking puts him down and throws him away. Just flings him off.
Pulls a Superman too.
Yeah. Like he's like, if he didn't have, I understand he needs the power suit. That's part of Black Manta's thing. You know what I mean? He's able to be a threat in the water because of his like his Navy SEAL abilities and his suit. That's why he's
and
a
that was
threat.
the whole point. Was he didn't.
But this one, he
need
doesn't have a power suit.
Right. He just has the helmet, and he's powered because he has the trident. And I'll tell you what, I felt like it was a little too easy to find that trident. Like it was just laying there. Like it would have been neat if it was kind of like in a very more prominent place or something, a little bit more showing parallels to Atlan or something. Or like,
well, yeah, I mean, it was during it was during the fight. I mean, unless I don't recall seeing like he chopped the trident in half when he beat his brother and it fell into the sea. You know what I mean? If it would have been
Right.
a quick cut, like it fell into the sea during the fight, like he knocked it away and it fell into the sea and it never was recovered. And it was just kind of there. Like if they kind of gave you that snippet of a scene, does that only take you a second of screen time to watch that thing fall over into the sea?
I just like he's like it's just laying there and he finds it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Um,
That's one of those convenience things. I mean, that's like
Yep.
every person who frickin' opens a book bound in skin and inked in blood and reads the damn thing aloud.
Nothing bad ever
Like
came from reading a
it's
book.
it's the plot convenience.
It's like when you're like, okay, it's like in the scenes where we got to find some evidence to pull this together. They walk into an office and they're like looking, all of a sudden find it. So spending hours shaking the room down. But you know, it was one of the things that bugged me is because I felt like you have Manta who is threatening, who is full of rage, and you know, you could have made it that the trident gave him the like he had powers with it, but having him basically possessed, um, I felt like it shortchanged him. The other thing about this movie is they're burning the orichalcum and it's like mutating the island. That feels like a whole nother movie right there. Like them on a volcano island that's changing and re-terraforming kind of thing, and because it's burning, and that felt like a whole other subplot that we didn't need to get it. That was a different movie.
Yeah. Well, I think in my opinion, I feel like that's more them pushing the idea of how volatile the orichalcum can be, because what they were talking about throughout the movie in all of the news reels was all of these natural disasters that are happening all over the world, temperatures and disasters, floods and storms, and you name it, all this stuff that's happening because of what they're doing, but also the specific region, the island that they're doing this at, this reactor that they're doing this at, um, it has infected everything around it. Like this stuff is extremely bad. Like this stuff was only used by this one place for this one reason, and it was extremely unstable and very volatile. I think that was really to just like push that fact, build on the fact, because we talk about how there's so many things in this movie, and
Mm-hmm.
does everything really push the plot forward, or do some of those things build on top of itself? And I think that the orichalcum, the island, was really building on how bad that is. Like this is what it's doing to the entire planet, is what we see from the newsreels, but like this is how bad it can be in this like central location where it's really where it's being burned.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're not wrong. It's just I'm just like that.
I mean, it's not like they were trying to
feel-
make Mysterious Island.
I know, but they were close to it.
Yeah, pretty close.
Maybe they were. Maybe they were. They were gonna bring in like what was the villain from shoot?
You mean The Rock's going to show up and start doing a peck pop, like we get Black Adam doing a peck pop?
But I just yeah. So I felt like Black Manta, one of the. I'm trying to figure like I would have. What did you think about his like dialogue towards Arthur when they broke in? I thought they broke into Atlantis really interestingly with their sonic cannon thing, like the waves, because we saw how fortified Atlantis was in the first film, and how
so
Black
the thing
Manta gives Arthur that lecture where he's like, first you take his crown, then you take his woman. Arthur.
Yeah. That
What'd
was
you-
re-recorded. I have no doubt that was re-recorded ADR dialogue. But yeah, the dialogue I thought was corny. I mean, I guess it fits. It does. But the thing I have a problem with is they came in to Atlantis and they had one cannon and they shot down one cannon. In the first one, it was multiple cannons up on that wall. But they just strolled in, took down one cannon, and walked right in the frickin' place.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I mean, he's supposed to be a threat. Black Manta's supposed to be a threat and everything that they can do. I mean, they have this ancient technology, but it didn't make sense that there was only one cannon. I swear to you, we just watched it a few weeks ago. I swear to you, there were multiple cannons up on that wall.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, it just was like, maybe the fight was bigger and they cut it down.
Right. Very possible. Very, very possible. Because it kind of seemed like they just strolled in and did whatever the heck they wanted to do. But during that scene, especially when Arthur catches that train that goes down, I was like, man, like this Aquaman is like Superman underwater and he's a badass.
Yeah. And that's how he should be, the water gives him more power. There were some things we'll pick apart in the future, like some CG stuff where there are times where it went from looking like Jason Momoa swimming to just being a CG double doing stuff.
Right.
Okay, to the real star of the film, Patrick Wilson. Man, I love Patrick Wilson.
I do too.
That dude, like, I was joking with Ginny the other night, like, Patrick Wilson just being one of those guys, like, even when he's trying to be, like, unfit, like, he was, like, he was supposed to have, like, the middle-aged man with a beer belly type thing in Watchmen, he still looked fit and awesome. Like, the dude's just a treasure. But when he shows up as Orm, and they really get them back going together, that's where the movie really kind of takes off. One of my favorite parts in the movie, okay? My favorite part in the movie is when they bust out and they're trying to get to the water and Orm's running and it just looks weird. And you're like, okay. And then later when they're in the jungle and they're running and it looks weird. He's like, I've never ran before. Like, just like,
see,
and he's like, oh, you just do this. And then he starts running and he passes Arthur and he's like, like, so after that, like Solomon, we're out one day walking around and I'm just like, run like Orm. And he just like kind of puts his arms and listen, and he just starts running and it was hilarious. His Orm running impression was top notch.
So that would be hilarious. That's, I didn't quite notice him like running weird, like trying to get to the water. I didn't notice it at the time because in all honesty, at that point, he is weak. He's weak. He's
see, that's what I thought. That's what I thought too. But
yeah,
then, like
undernourished.
in retrospect,
they did the Steve Rogers thing to him, like where he's all small.
It also helped with all the facial hair and long hair and stuff. Like, it really kind of helped with it,
But that scene where he's running, I saw it, and he's running with his hands behind his back. Even before they even started the whole joke thing, the whole this is how you run. Like, I saw him running away, and he had his hands back. I was like, oh my god, he's like trying to swim. Like he's trying to swim away. And then he's like, what are you doing? It's like, I've never run before. And then he just took off. He's like, and he's like, damn, because he's just took off.
I loved it.
Oh, it was hysterical. I laughed so hard.
I think, like, I think this movie. Okay, movies like. Did you see the last Fantastic Beast, the third one, the Dumbledore based one, The
Yeah.
Secrets of Dumbledore? Okay, one of the things in that movie that kind of bothered me was you have these parallel stories that you're drawing about brothers, but you really don't use them. Okay, and I feel like this movie pulls on brothers because you have Arthur and Orm, and then you have Atlan and Cordax. And I feel like, because even, Thomas talks about wishing he could have gave Arthur a sibling,
Right.
And I just feel like we could have had focus a little bit more on just the brother. Because some of my favorite scenes is between Arthur and Orm talking, and he's like, he's like, I meant what I said when I found out I had a brother and everything. I like those scenes. And I like this. I mean, I like the scenes where Arthur's intelligent and he tells Orm like about how he's prejudiced because he's never experienced the other half of the planet that he's had the ability to. And he starts asking about food, but then he goes into Jason Momoa mode. When he starts
And
talking
tricks him into eating a cockroach.
See, that doesn't bother me. That's brother stuff. Like, I made my brother eat dog food. But like when he's like, "Oh,
Dude,
you never had a slice of
a cockroach is a shrimp of the sea, man.
I mean,
shrimps and lobsters are bugs. They're bugs in the sea, and people eat them all the time.
Yeah, and they're delicious.
They are.
So yeah, like the cockroach thing didn't bother me, but what was the talking about the za? I was just like, really, dude, really? Like that was when it went from Arthur to Jason.
Yeah, but I did love Patrick Wilson's comeback there. Like, even your words for food is just repulsive.
Yes,
I loved it. It was Patrick Wilson, man. I loved it.
Like I was like, yes, because even me, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to call pizza za. Like, let's get a slice of za, bro.
Yeah, right.
No.
Coming from the surfer guy from Iowa.
Yeah. So exactly. But yeah, the Orm was great in the movie, and I think we got a chance to really, when he said, "After this is over, I'll turn myself back in." And it was to show that he was, he was an honorable person at one point who had lost his way, and that's what made him, And what is the line where he says to Arthur, like, "You really didn't want the throne?" He's like, "No,
yeah,
I was trying to stop you."
I was gonna talk. I was just about to bring that up. Since we're talking about Patrick Wilson and Orm, he's talking about how he doesn't want to be king, how he didn't want to be king. And he said, "Wait, you mean you didn't come to Atlantis to take the throne from me?" And he's like, "No, I didn't want it." He said, "The only reason I was there to stop you from being a dick."
Yeah, and that's, when we haven't rewatched the first one, they don't really ever have that real conversation because he says, when you're ready to talk, we'll talk. And that's the thing, is when you go back, the first movie's villain is Orvax, and he's not even in the film. But his whole thing was he raised his son to believe that Arthur will come one day to challenge him. So he was so blinded by that he didn't even take time to.
Oh yeah, blinded by the fact that his line wouldn't be king. That his line wasn't heir to the throne.
Exactly. So I like they were able to slightly shift Orm without it feeling like it was out of left field.
Yeah. And then when they're running from the giant freaking mutant grasshoppers, it's like, "Oh, hey, I forgot to tell you. Mom says she loves you and she thinks about you every day. Why are you telling me this now?"
Thanks.
Well, if we're going to die.
So that's the stuff I really, really liked.
Yeah, most of their stuff together was great. I mean, they were fantastic as opponents in the sequel, or in the first one, and even better working together in this one, actually coming to understandings.
So let me ask you a question. in the third act, we have the big battle where they're there and they're trying to stop Necris. It feels very much like I think like the City of the Dead. It felt very Sam Raimi to me, not in a bad way. And they're battling, and of course the Black Trident leaves Manta, and Arthur and Orm have their moment, and he destroys the Black Trident by throwing his trident through the Black Trident. Did that work for you?
So him throwing it through and it destroying it the way it did, the visual was really awesome. I thought it was a really cool moment, cool, what happened. I thought it was that section was really, really sweet. But the fact that it was, I'm free, catch the trident, I'm dead. I was like, well, that might be. At first, I was like, well, that's almost anticlimactic. But I was like, that
Right.
was really cool.
Yeah, it was really cool.
So it's kind of almost in the middle there.
I was kind of hoping that, like, I wonder if it was cut, like, because like when Black Manta and Arthur were fighting, see, okay, something I'm gonna share this. I don't want to give it away, but something that my friend and I said that was Star Wars had missed is something I had hoped that we could have done in this movie, and that's a Mexican standoff with lightsabers, but in this case with trident or with tridents. So, like, if you could have had something where Orm had a trident back, and Arthur has his, and then Manta has the Black Trident, but then you have like Kordax's ghost not really just like affecting Orm too. So you had like all three of them kind of fighting each other. That could have been really cool. So that could have been really, really cool. Manta dying or disappearing the way he did, I was fine with, because I feel like that was true to his character. Like, you can't have all this hate in your heart that you're going to destroy the world to just grab somebody's hand, and it does kind of close Arthur's arc in a way that in the first film he realized he should have saved Manta's dad, and that was on him, how he made an enemy,
Right.
and he was trying to make up for that, atone for it in a sense. And David just falling into the abyss was fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, I didn't think he would grab it, but I was like, well, that's good, I mean, like Aquaman, that is a turn from the way he was in the first. Ask the sea for forgiveness, and at this point, you tried to kill my father, you tried to kill my son, but I'm still going to help you out of there. So, that just shows how good of a person he truly has become. Because I think obviously that's the point. That's his hero's journey from the beginning of Aquaman to the end of this one. Where at the beginning he would have killed him. He would have just let him fall. He'd have looked down at him, gave him a little wave and said, "See ya." And now he wouldn't. So
yeah. Okay. Let me ask you this. Do you feel part of me feel like this movie didn't have enough stakes? And I say that because I feel like everybody made it out of this movie fine, except Manta. But I mean, did you think they were going to kill the baby?
No.
No,
I did not think they would kill the baby, even though that's what happened in the comics. I did not think that Hollywood would go there.
I was expecting something along the lines of like Justice League Unlimited. Like, I thought for sure we would get the hook hand. He'd have to make the big sacrifice to save his son. It's one of my favorite scenes in Justice League Unlimited. When he cuts his own hand off to save his kid.
Right.
I thought we'd go somewhere there, but we didn't. And I'm telling you, like, James Wan did a great job of honoring Aquaman throughout the Silver Age, Modern Age, really combining all of Aquaman's stories. And had there been more, had Zack Snyder stayed on as producer and kind of shepherd the other movies more, Aquaman would have lost his hand. It would have been much more 90s Aquaman. Because, I mean, that's what Momoa straight up looks like when you look at that first photo of Jason as Aquaman when it was teasing the BVS appearance.
Oh, yeah. He's got that shoulder bit on with the trident. He's shirtless. Yeah.
But even like the way they did his hair and his goatee and everything, his eyes and everything, was a little bit different than how he evolves. And yeah, he would have lost his hand and been Aquaman for sure. But I mean, like I said, like Thomas doesn't die, Mira doesn't die, Baby makes it out, which we all knew that was going to happen. They don't have the balls to kill a kid. So yeah, I just feel like Orm lives.
Dude, I mean, like, you kill a kid, you don't kill a kid. You know, Flash saves a bunch of kids, and people still complain. Like, you can't freaking win with the fandom, I guess.
But I'm just saying, like, you have Orm, who they basically say, "Oh, you died in like they like him." You have the Brine King, and you have King Dolph Lundgren there, and they basically say your debt's paid, but you couldn't return, so they let him just kind of swim away and do his own thing.
Yeah, he says, Aquaman says, in my opinion, your debt is paid, but others won't see it that way, won't see it as such. You know, I mean, he killed the Fisherman King, you know, he started a war, you know, he did all this stuff. So yeah, there are other kingdoms and people who would still begrudge him. And expect him to still pay his debt for murder. Which I thought he was gonna let King Nereus die. You know?
Did you?
Yeah, I thought he was. I was debating if he was going to, and then when he gave that evil half smile, I thought he was gonna leave him. And then he popped back in. I was like, "Ooh, that's good."
I mean, they could have played it either way, and I would have bought it either way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he could have done one of those, like, he killed the king kind of Scar, you know?
Yeah.
And no one knew, like, it was his responsibility. He's like, King Nereus, he fell. I couldn't reach him, you know? And everyone's like, oh, you tried. But no, he saved him, which is good.
But I did like it because it turned back. Nereus is like, I don't trust you. You can't have a gun. Here, take this axe. And then he uses that axe to save him. And he's like, okay, you can have a gun now.
Yeah, from someone else who, like, what's that person like? Well, what about me, dude?
Yeah.
What am I going to use? My hands?
He's like, yeah, you're not going to make it out of this anyways. Give him the gun.
You're a red shirt.
Yeah, exactly. You're a red shirt. He's a gold shirt. You're going to die.
We could have explored Zebul in this film to really understand, like, his kingdom a little bit. Because we didn't really get to go. We didn't see any of the Atlantean soldiers like we did in the sweet suits.
Nope, not until the end when they were approaching the United Nations. What was really cool in this, I like, speaking of Zebul and stuff, is how they come in their starfish type submarines, you know? Whereas, like you see the Zebul subs, they look like that. They look different. But then when you see all, like, the Atlantis transportation, that's all very different, very, like, mobile and sleek and bright. And Zebul's was a bit darker and just, like, large and slow, lumbering almost looking.
So yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Don't get me wrong. I don't know. Maybe I just would have liked more. I just really liked it, I guess. So let's talk about the end. So basically, Arthur talking to Orm about what Atlantis could do to help the surface. He decides to make a play and reveal Atlantis to the world. So it really, where the Flash, referenced everyone in the Justice League, this movie referenced nobody. There was both a Batfleck scene and a Keaton scene, both cut out of this movie. And that goes back to the retoolage of the film. So there was no connection to anywhere outside the DC films. Anywhere outside the Aquaman.
Which I wonder if, real quick, the one line when he says, I kicked your ass to be king, and I did that without any prep time. If that wasn't like some kind of pull from a Batman joke or something.
Maybe. But you have Arthur giving this beautiful speech at the United Nations, and it makes kind of sense because we don't know what the Justice League really has done and how active Arthur has been part of it, since the only other thing we've gotten that connects the Justice League after Justice League was the little bit in Flash. And Flash originally was supposed to be the last film. Aquaman was not supposed to be the last film of the DCEU. So Arthur gives this great speech, and then we're intercut with a montage again, like we said. Now, in this montage, I think this whole scene should have been the post-credit scene. Is we see Orm at a cafe order a cheeseburger and get a cheeseburger, and that was one of the foods that Arthur had talked about. Which makes me kind of, why is it in the montage when what we get in the post-credit scene? But then, you know what, James, you can just take over and tell him about the final shot.
So he gives this good speech, and I thought it was really great. He's talking about uniting the world. He's talking about cleaning the air. He's talking about cleaning the ocean. It's a great message. And then we get this. Do we have an explicit tag on this?
We're about to be. I mean, gosh.
We get this crappy shot. This crappy Justice League close-up shot where everything around looks fake and garbage. And Jason Momoa goes, I'm the king of Atlantis. I'm Aquaman. Woo! And that's how they frickin' end the damn movie.
I mean, and I hated it. Because it looks so cheesy, and it undermines everything that just happened.
It's not as bad as The Tooth, but it is damn near as close.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Just think back, like when the first movie ends, where he's giving the speech and he swims up the water and he comes up and goes, "I am Aquaman." Like, it's so yes, that's how you make $1 billion movie. Not, I'm Aquaman, woo! That's a reshoot. That's Jason Momoa. That's not Arthur.
Yeah. They're like, hey, Jason, we need you to come in. You don't even have to act. Just put on the suit and say this stupid line.
No, they did. They were like, hey, Jason, come here. Come over here. Yeah, what's up? Hey, what carry playing? What movie? Oh, I am Aquaman. Woohoo! And cut. Wait, what? We were filming? Yeah, man, you're good. You're good. Go.
Right?
Because I was thinking he should have been in the crown. He should have looked more regal as the king of Atlantis approaching the United Nations. You think about when his mother appeared after he rescued her, and then she appears with that robe and everything, looking nice to Orm. She has a little bit of a different appearance. Arthur should have appeared with Atlan's crown on and everything when he went to talk to the United Nations.
Well, clearly in Atlantis, you only get one pair of clothing ever. Your delegation uniform, you sitting on the throne uniform, you're talking in front of the council uniform, you're talking in front of the world uniform, and your fighting uniform. Your fighting armor. I needed all the same thing.
I needed him to change clothes as much as Princess Amidala does in episode 1. Okay, that's what I needed. That's what I needed. But dude, okay, so
I mean, he should have,
you
dude.
know-
He's sitting. Orm had a king outfit when he was sitting on the throne
yep,
with the crown and crap.
he had
He had a different war outfit. He had a different Ocean Master outfit. He had a different just chillin' outfit.
and then he had the cool outfit he wore in this movie. That was neat. Okay, so we backtrack talking about outfits. We didn't even talk about the stealth suit.
Right?
What did you think about this? How Arthur had to rescue Orm in the desert prison by himself because Atlantis wouldn't allow it. But he doesn't even wear a mask.
Yeah.
Like he wears the stealth suit so he won't be seen. How does the stealth suit work covering his face?
I know everybody's seen him, but I don't know. They're deserters. They're kind of like dead-ish beings. I don't know. But
From a point of view, if I was designing this film, okay, and you didn't have Jason being Jason, so to speak, I would have wanted him to cut his hair and go trim his goatee and make it more pointy and look a little bit more just like give him a different, sleeker look, you know? And then I think it would have worked really cool with his aesthetic in this movie instead of just being still the long hair, just himself. But definitely the scene right here would have, I would have called for the man bun. Like, dude, the stealth scene, we're gonna have to pull that hair up. Okay.
yeah. The thing that got me was King Nearest. I mean, the joke, like, what is this? A kid's extra medium, or whatever it was. And that was kind of funny. But he said this will camouflage you for about a minute. This will camouflage you for about a minute. It doesn't say it doesn't say you could have all these uses for it. You have this many times, it recharges itself, blah, 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 blah. Every couple of minutes during that whole scene, he just hits that frickin' wrist gauntlet and he turns invisible. And then he comes back. And then a little bit later, he hits that frickin' wrist gauntlet and he just turns invisible. And then he just comes back. It's like, it's like he wasn't even structured that the invisibility meant anything. You know?
Because then at times he didn't even really care that he wasn't covering himself. Like they're like, oh yeah, they're totally gonna figure out who you are. You know.
So it got me there. I was like, well, how many times can he use it? How many times can he turn invisible?
And don't even tell me like it's one of those switch your brain off. No, you built logic into everything you've done for this film. So don't tell me that you want me to do something where all of a sudden now I have to suspend any kind of logic because you choose.
I mean, the whole movie the whole universe is suspending logic. But when you decide to say that there is that it does something and it does it for a certain amount of time, like if it can do it at unlimited amount of times, apparently, like it should just be turn on and turn off at your whim. You shouldn't have even had a line that it'll last you over a minute. You know what I mean? That would have just totally eliminated everything. Yep. He turns it on, he turns it off. There you go. Not a big deal. But you had to put in this line that it lasts about a minute. Okay, it lasts about a minute, so I guess it has to recharge, right? I mean, or are you just saying like he's got video game powers and every so many turns you can use that power again?
So I pulled up Aquaman right now as we're talking, just to pull it up. Like, yeah, you know, Orm has this beautiful kingly, all golden suit, you know, and he looks great. Then he has his armor where he fights him. Then he has his full on Ocean Master gear. Like, yeah, he definitely gets some costume changes. And yeah, it was good stuff. And we definitely, and he has his not Ocean Master, but just like his regular outfit. Yeah, we got robbed.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've said a lot of things. Like there are bits with this movie that I think we have had little gripes with, and a little bit
Dude.
of like there should have been some things. They
Like, it's one of
clearly
the
didn't think some things through, and I think part of that is just like retooling it over and over and over again.
yeah, because I mean the first film was so thought through and worked through, and you know, here in probably about a month and a half, we'll be doing our commentary on it when it hits digital, or maybe when it does home release. We'll see. Just to kind of go ahead and wrap up our last DCEU film to do a commentary for. But the post-credit scene. The post-credit scene is basically part of the montage we saw of Orm ordering a cheeseburger, but this is actually now a scene as he gets his cheeseburger, and then he takes a bite. Then a cockroach comes, by. First of all, it's an outdoor restaurant, and they have roaches. That's a problem, period. And then he puts it on the burger, and then he takes another bite, and he looks more satisfied, which would be funny. Which I would have done the whole scene. I wouldn't have put it at all in the montage as a post-credit scene, like, and had a good mid-credit scene, But it's such a throwaway scene that we really didn't need. And then that's the last shot of the DCEU is Worm eating a cockroach.
Mm-hmm.
It's either that or Jason Momoa going, "Woo, I'm Aquaman."
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much good with cutting it off, like, right after he's like, I'm king of Atlantis. Whoop! Stop it.
Boom, title card. So yeah, it was just kind of frustrating. It could have been better. And I do want to point out, okay, that one of the most important scenes in The Flash is the scene with Aquaman and Barry, where Aquaman is just being a drunk, falling down. It looks like Jason was just like, I'm just gonna fall around and be like okay. Like, what, Jason? Yeah, dude, I'm just gonna fall in this water here. Okay. Like, because the dialogue he says in that is crucial in what James Gunn is building with his DC universe. And that's when Barry says to him, I went to all these other worlds and you were you. Batman was different, but you were always the same. And that shows, that right there is the dialogue needed so that if they wanted to include Momoa as Aquaman or any of the other people from the DCEU into the new DCU, that was the setup line. But they throw it away in a crappy scene that no one pays attention to.
Yep.
But next time I come to visit you, we're going out for burgers and roaches, bro.
Yum. Yeah, man, I really don't. What? It's just sad, the irreverence that they give this property. You know,
because you went from taking the joke character that people all we knew from was where people made fun of Aquaman. You made him into a serious character that was respected, and then you took him right back to being a joke. And it's frustrating because Aquaman's awesome.
Oh, dude, they wanted to make everybody a joke now. You know what I mean?
Come on, the lasso joke in The Flash was the same lasso joke basically that Aquaman had in Justice League. You know, you can have jokes without making people a joke. So let me ask you this. I won't ask you your DCU ranking because we're going to be doing that in our review. But out of just the 3 confirmed DCEU movies this year, I still am on the verge with Blue Beetle because right now, because of some of the Gunn's comments about it, I'm not really counting it DCEU. I'm counting it its own thing, and we'll see what happens. And if I have to later add it in my DCU is fine. But out of the 3 films we got this year, where do you rank? How do you rank them?
Oh, man, how do I rank them? I'd probably have to go with. It's really hard. I mean, I'd probably have to go with Blue Beetle and then Aquaman.
Well, like I said, I'm not counting Blue Beetle.
Oh yeah,
So I said the
right.
3.
Yeah, you said the 3. Well, then definitely Aquaman is the best one that has come out this year between Aquaman, Shazam, and the Flash. I give it to Aquaman without question. Like right now, after just seeing it a couple hours ago, yeah, there were a lot of bits, but I feel like it worked a lot better as a film. So I think Aquaman is my favorite of the 3. And then it would, that it's so tough to actually pick which one would be 2 and 3 because they could flip flop for different reasons.
All 3 of them could slide for me.
I don't think that, and I have to watch them again. But we just rewatched Shazam 2 not that long ago, and The Flash. We just rewatched them all, and I still feel like Aquaman would probably be my favorite out of the 3. But the other 2, they could flip flop for different reasons because I like them for reasons, and I dislike things about them for reasons.
See, I think my number 1 would be Shazam, with Aquaman number 2, and I think that's because I don't have as many nitpicks about it. Like it feels like more of a complete film and story. I feel like there's some parts I think Zach Levi goes a little too far. I think part of that's because they didn't give enough to Asher Angel in Shazam, because I just recently watched Shazam again too. I think there's some editing that come in tweaked in Shazam 2 as well. And I think the whole subplot of him aging out is weird because the timeline doesn't add up. But for the most part, it was pretty cohesive. We've talked about the reshoots and the retooling and everything for Aquaman. And then The Flash, I think I'm just frustrated with it a lot more. With just like the overall, what the story was and the use of Batman and the ending and some of the dumb stuff they did in it. And like, did the Barry and Barry really need to happen? Like, you could have had a better script.
Yeah.
For the story they were trying to tell in that movie. So
I think for more reasons, Flash would probably be last, and Shazam would be 2.
See, that's what I'm saying. I think no matter what, I think Flash will always be the last one.
But if you go back to our review of the Flash, I think we really liked it at the time, but we've definitely soured on it. For a lot of different reasons, and we talked about that not that long ago when we actually when we did the commentary.
Yeah, and a lot of it was just like, my thing is that for the movie that's the Flash, there's a lot of non-Flash action in the movie. Like the last scene is him and Barry running around doing nothing when they could have been running up to each Kryptonian and like giving them a heart attack and taking them down. Like, it's a lot of them running and doing nothing. And like the opening scene of Barry running is like my favorite scene in the movie. And I hate all the needle drops in that movie.
Yeah, it is pretty much downhill from the first run. From when he runs to Gotham, and then after that, I mean, yeah, it's pretty much downhill.
The score was good, but nothing popped out as like a memorable musical cue. Like when I wanted like a Flash theme to be like, I'm coming out of the theater thinking like, but okay. So last thing real quick. What do you give Aquaman 2 at letter grade?
I really wish I knew what kind of letter grade I had given Aquaman, but just to like give like an actual like educated answer to that for a letter grade. But I would give it I don't know if I want to go C+ or a B- because it's middle of the road, but on the good side for me.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
You know what
C
I
plus
mean?
to B minus. That's exactly where I am. I feel like some of the Momoaism stuff left a bad taste in my mouth, but I don't feel like it's enough there. I feel like if I go watch it again, I would be on the B plus.
Yeah. I think
Or
the
B
thing,
minus.
yeah, I think the things that give it that for me is and you say the Momoa isms, and I guess they go hand in hand with it, but the obvious reshoot bits.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That really bring forward more of those Jason Momoa isms that you're talking about, because that's when he is a lot of that in those areas. I mean, he's got a bunch of it throughout the movie, especially when he's like joking with his brother and giving him a hard time about all these different things and stuff. But I think those things are very prevalent in the things that appear to obviously be reshoots.
Out and about, driving for work, just thinking on some things. So this is Tyler's Aquaman 2 thoughts before the review. I really think that we should have gotten a scene at the beginning with Thomas and Atlanta, showing that they have some sort of relationship they're working on. She's their advisor. She should have become the Volko role. Now, I've seen this film and I've thought about this movie, and I'm curious. I've had people say that some of the scenes with certain characters maybe they were supposed to be Amber Heard scenes and Mira was supposed to be around. I don't know. Mira's role in the film is very weird for a mother. The ending, I feel like, could have been shots when it shows like the family and this kind of montage at the end that maybe were earlier in the film that were recalibrated to make an ending. I feel like the opening montage at the beginning is a way of working around maybe cutting scenes that had Mira and using footage. You know, the movie is like 2 hours long, so it kind of makes me think maybe it was longer. But I feel like big gaps in this film is we have the what do you call it? The whole ecology, Earth, save the Earth plotline. It's kind of like a Superman 4, where you have the main actor wanting to take more of a role and put in an agenda, which there's nothing wrong with, but then they have to still make it a comic book film that's not too realistic, and so we get a muddled story. I think the first movie set up the idea of fathers and sons and children's relationship with their mother. Okay? You know, we had Orvax, who's the true villain of the first Aquaman film, who's not even in the movie. So when we get to Aquaman 2, we're carrying these themes. And I think that if you would have had Nicole Kidman as the Volko role, that really helps play in the plot with Flurring Orm and her wanting Orm and Aquaman together. We should have got his name as Orn. You know, that wasn't established in these films. Throwing that out there. I think that the council was a subplot that got lost somewhere in re-edits, shoots, because it serves no purpose in this film. It's something you could eject easily and there wouldn't be a misbeat unless there was a subplot about them unhappy with Arthur as king and wanting to take the monarchy, and that really becomes a huge point. I do think that we could have had part of the David Kane subplot of trying to seduce an Atlantean woman and getting her pregnant. And then he murders her but he didn't know that she had given birth, and alluded to the baby. And you have this kind of reciprocal story of Aquaman raising Black Manta's child alongside his child to be brothers. And kind of that is his way of healing and paying forward kind of to Manta for the death of his father and the redemption. But then you have Manta in this film disgusted at the child because the child's part Atlantean and showing how much he hates Atlantis and Aquaman. As far as the Lost City or the Lost Kingdom, it should have been that the Trident... It should have been clear that the Trident was pulling towards Manta, and he should have been kind of led to it, and they found it because they were searching for Atlantean tech, much like they did in the film. But I felt like the way the Trident was just kind of laying there, too easy. It should have been about the kingdom rising, because then you also have the story about brothers that failed each other, being Kordak and Atlan, right? And so you have these mirrors of brothers and brother stories that kind of culminate with Aqua Baby and what would be Calder. I believe that there is an edit cut somewhere out there that Thomas did die. And that's why I say that they took scenes from the beginning and kind of edited them at the bottom to make the montage so that you see scenes of Thomas alive. He's going to die, or he's going to make it scenes, and even Black Manta's dialogue is given in that helmet that could have been just changed in post. I believe that there's some out there that he died. Excuse me. The other thing is, I never thought they would kill the baby. That is just too dark, and they haven't established that dark of a tone in the Aquaman series. Had this been still in the tone of maybe the Snyderverse, Snyder films pre-crisis, maybe they would have done that. Maybe they would have went there. We talked about how when Jason was cast in Zack Snyder's Aquaman, and I say that because of looking at his Justice League and BVS, was definitely 90s Aquaman. And I think what we needed in this film was we needed some stakes, because everyone walks away from this movie completely unharmed and great. I needed the heart-wrenching scene of Arthur deciding that it's more powerful to cut his own hand off and hurt himself and save his child than anything else. That done on Justice League, the animated series, amazing. And that's what I wanted. I didn't want to see the baby die. It's too much. Okay, too much. But the baby in peril and Arthur, basically hurting himself to save his child, I feel like is right in line with 90s Aquaman, yes, but also showing how much he loves his child in the story that we're presented with. I wanted to share my gifts with somebody. And this movie is not as much of a jumble. It makes sense. It's not a Justice League jumble. But knowing that they did test screenings like a year and a half ago or something where, we've had this movie pushed back. It was supposed to be out last year. So who knows what actually originally existed in this film. I kind of hate that the pirate fight at the beginning is kind of him telling a story, because I bet that would have been an awesome action scene. So I just feel like there is a great Aquaman sequel. This one is not bad. I just feel like there's some scenes that needed to be edited. These are my light thoughts on just kind of the movie story and structure, and we'll get more into it whenever James gets to see the film.
So there you have it. Now, last thing I'm going to leave you with. I posed this the other day online. I was watching Shazam. I said, how cool would Shazam 2 have been if the ending was like Pirates of the Caribbean 2? When they're sitting there and Billy's dead and Wonder Woman shows up. And she doesn't bring him back, but she opens a portal to the underworld and the kids go on a quest to save Billy's soul. Like, tell me that would have not been an awesome ending.
That would have been a great ending. That would have been an awesome ending, especially if they would have had, building a universe, building a box office and brand trust that you could see that third one is coming.
But I mean, at the time, the thing you think about Aquaman and Shazam,
Dude,
Shazam had the
you
lowest
say at
budget.
the time, but there hasn't been crap set at the time for Warner Brothers in 5 years, 6 years.
Aquaman was, when they started the sequel process, Shazam was the lowest budgeted and turned a high profit. Aquaman was the highest grossing film. And you got to think how long they started these films that got strung on longer and longer and longer. And so it's like, as we dive into it later, everything just gets retooled and just
I was going to say, yeah,
and changed.
But they've been retooling crap since Suicide Squad. So it's been every movie. Like, there has never been a consistency.
Aquaman wasn't. Shazam wasn't. Because those are your two first Hamada movies where he had sole control. That's what I'm saying is
he didn't have control when those movies were already started before he got control.
If you go back, they were in pre-production, but they hadn't shot anything because he started coming in 2016. James Wan was hired in 2015.
Hamada didn't come in until after Justice League.
No. But you got to look at, because Hamada officially took over after Justice League. And if you go back and there's interviews with him and Jeff Johns, they talk about how they start talking around Justice League and how their first big thing is Aquaman. And they start talking, because there's so much that overlaps that you don't think about. But their first big launches, like them,
I think their big launch was Aquaman, because that was the first movie that was coming out when they were like, quote unquote, like getting into power. I think they didn't have anything to do with those movies actually being built up to begin with.
So my question to you then is, how do those two movies, I feel like the ones that seeped out tethered, unfeathered, like undamaged. I think the only three movies of the DCU that really didn't suffer damage: Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Shazam. I think everything else got screwed with.
Well, heck, I mean, for the most part, but even Wonder Woman's third act was changed.
Yeah, but but that's just movie making. Like, I don't look at that as like, because Marvel's done that too. You know what I'm saying? I don't look at it like the big stuff we're talking about where they're like, oh, we need to reshoot half the film. We need to change the tone, you know?
Yeah. You can change it.
I think
post.
the Suicide
Just
Squad.
shoot the crap. We can change it in post.
I think the Suicide Squad didn't get messed with, because that was like a different era, but so crazy. But all right, man, we're going to bounce out of here. Happy start of January, everybody.
It was. I really enjoyed Aquaman 2, and you should all go see it.
James gets paid every time somebody sees Aquaman. He gets a quarter.
So go see it.
Soon you'll have enough quarters to buy me a Coke.
All right.
A cola, people. Yeah. Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola.
Good night, everybody.
Look up in the sky.
We just want to say, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please check out other podcasts on the Press Play Podcast Network.
If you are like Tyler and James and can't get enough Super Talk, check out these other podcasts. Digging for Kryptonite, Supergirl Radio, The Last Sons of Krypton, The Superboy Legacy Podcast, All-Star Superfans, Superman the Animated Podcast, The Aspiring Kryptonians, Always Hold On to Smallville, The Geek of Steel, and Truth, Justice, and Hope.
What's up, everybody? Chase Smith here from the Chase Smith Podcast and Cavs on the Break NBA Podcast.
And I'm JD, host of the Hyman Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network, and we are super excited to bring you a brand new show starting next Tuesday, the Fanfare Podcast.
The Fanfare Podcast is all about your favorite movies and our favorite movies and the best moments in cinema. To help guide our discussion, each episode will feature one classic, and we will grade this movie using a report card like scale A through F. We're going to be grading categories like acting, directing, cinematography, the score, and even the movie poster itself.
And when we're not featuring a movie report card, we'll be sharing our movie rankings, franchise deep dives, actor and director interviews, and everything in between. Movies have been a major part of our lives, and we cannot wait to share our thoughts.
Our premiere episode will drop Tuesday, June 27th, and JD and I will be reviewing Raiders of the Lost Ark in preparation of the release of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny on June 30th, the 5th installment of the franchise.
Join us on the Fanfare Podcast, available on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us, and then listen in.
Here at Krypton Report, we believe in the power of podcast, the power of speaking your voice and speaking something that comes. So here's a couple of podcasts you can check out, people sharing their.
I am Brian Peters, the creator and host of Gravely Amusing. For the past 30 years, I've studied the history of gods and monsters in pop culture and our world. As a student of theology and history, I've tried to understand evil and its impact on us. As a writer, I've tried to share this knowledge. As a comedian, I've tried to make people laugh as I do it. But as a man-child, I'm still that scared 7-year-old boy. Join me as I share the history of horror and sci-fi, discuss classic and modern pop culture, and share a creepy story or two. This podcast may scare you, it may horrify you, or it may leave you gravely amused. Listen to Gravely Amusing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever podcasts are found. Follow us on Twitter at Gravely_Amusing or on TikTok at Gravely Amusing.
Hi, I'm Taria, and this is my co-host, Jania Patrick. We're a couple of sisters in Central Ohio who created a podcast. Our podcast is called The Confessing Heretics.
The basic premise of the podcast right now, as we see, is we're going to talk to you guys about our stories in religion, would you say?
This podcast is about sharing our truths, our religious traumas, and our histories. We'd love for you to join us on our journeys as we talk about our pasts and discover more about ourselves along the way. We will be featured on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Just look for The Confessing Heretics.
We have a $1 Patreon. Yes, I know everyone asks for money, but our $1 Patreon each month gets you commentary tracks for releasing movies, DC movies. It gets you my requel series where I pitch ideas about movie sequels, prequels, or whatever. It also gets special bonus episodes of whatever else some of the friends of the network chime in and drop. So check that out for $1 a month. That's all we ask. Keep it cheap, keep it simple, and help us keep going. Check out the link in the show notes or Patreon Krypton Report.
Follow the link in the link tree or in the show notes below, patreon.com/Krypton Report.